The sun hung low in the sky, painting the horizon with streaks of orange and crimson. Dust swirled in the evening air, stirred by the weight of time and burdened by memories. At the edge of this fading light sat a modest ranch, its fences worn yet steadfast, standing tall against the creeping shadows of the night. But on this particular evening, the tranquility would be shattered. A low rumble broke the stillness, rapidly growing louder. In the distance, the sound of motors roared to life, a violent orchestra of revving engines and clattering metal. A gang of motorbikers came charging down the dirt road, their spirits wild and untamed. They spilled forth like a dark cloud, cloaked in leather jackets adorned with patches and warning symbols of freedom, rebellion, and chaos. They came seeking a thrill, a game, perhaps even a battle. But at the heart of that ranch, a lone farmer stood. His hands, cracked and calloused from years of toil, gripped a worn wooden fence post. His eyes, sharp and piercing, surveyed the horizon, instinctively sensing the approaching storm. He could feel the weight of his land pressing against him, a silent promise kept for generations. This ranch had belonged to his family long before he was born, and every inch of it pulsed with history and choice. As the bikers drew near, their laughter crackling through the air, the farmer held his ground. He didn't waver, didn't turn away. Instead, he stepped forward, muscles tensing under the weight of impending doom, yet guided by the fierce love for his land. This wasn't just a business to him, it was a life, a legacy. When the gang stopped just beyond the fence line, the leader, a tall figure with a mane of wild hair, sized up the scene before him. His gaze shifted from the dusty expanse of the field to the farmer's steely stare. A grin cracked his face, filled with an intoxicating mix of bravado and disregard. The sound of his voice, taunting and careless, echoed above the growl of the engines. The farmer's heart raced, not out of fear, but out of resolve. This wasn't the first time people underestimated him, mistaking his quiet demeanor for weakness. "I'm here for the land," he replied, his voice steady, almost too calm for a man standing up to a storm. The bikers laughed, harsh and mocking. "Land." The leader kicked a rock, sending it flying. "You can't expect to protect it forever, old man." A bead of sweat trickled down the farmer's brow. He glanced over the field of golden wheat swaying gently in the wind, a sea of life that flourished under his care. Those crops told stories of seasons past, victory over drought, and the sweat of his brow. He felt their pulse resonating within him, urging him to stand firm. "Take what's yours," the leader challenged, revving his engine once more. The gang revved their bikes in unison, an unsettling chorus of power eager to drown out the farmer's voice. But the farmer wouldn't be cowed. He could see their restlessness, the need for a thrill. He took a deep breath, drawing courage from the earth beneath his feet. "This land has survived worse than you," he said, each word deliberate as he channeled his inner strength. Time hung heavy in the air, like an unwelcome tension before the storm. The gang exchanged glances, their bravado faltering in the wake of the farmer's unwavering demeanor. Those who lived in chaos often struggled with the idea of resilience. After all, they had traded stability for rebellion. They didn't know what it meant to protect something that mattered. The biker leader shifted gears. He asked, a hint of doubt creeping into his voice. "I won't have to. You're not the real threat here," the farmer shot back, heart pounding but voice steady. "You think this is about you, about your ego, but it's about something bigger." The wind picked up and the golden wheat swayed like an audience hanging on every word. Then slowly, something within the gang began to shift. The laughter faded, tension molded into uncertainty. They found themselves staring at a man who wouldn't budge, whose roots ran deeper than any rumbling engine. As though sensing their wavering resolve, the leader roared, "You think this place belongs to you? It's just land, an old shack with some crops. Lighten up." With each boast of reckless freedom, the farmer saw pieces of himself reflected back at him. The younger version, daring and hungry for adventure, tempted by the allure of escape. But he also recognized the hollowness beneath those brash lifestyles. The truth that freedom becomes meaningless without something to ground it, a fair anchor to call home. "Sure, you could take my land," he said, voice rising over the roar of engines. "But what will you have then?" The bikers hesitated. The shadows shifted darker and more tangible as the sun dipped further below the horizon. Something in the air changed. They could feel the weight of his words, the truth resonating deeper than the roar of their machines. The leader looked torn, anger clashing with something much softer. Perhaps it was respect, or understanding, or a recognition of an unspoken bond forged in struggle. "You're one stubborn old man," he muttered, almost to himself. A different energy filled the space and the farmer seized it. Standing your ground isn't stubbornness, it's conviction. The gang fell quiet. They were a motley crew of misfits, drawn together by a shared need for freedom, yet they felt the pull of loyalty to each other and to the land which would always be home. The reality struck them like the twilight dusk. They had been looking for something to conquer, but had instead stumbled upon a man who had already conquered. The leader finally asked the gang, eyes scanning their faces. Silence stretched between them like a rope ready to snap. The growing darkness welcomed uncertainty. The bikers, who had initially rushed forth seeking adrenaline and adventure, now found themselves at a crossroads. "I say we head on out," one of the gang members spoke finally, breaking free from the thick tension. The leader sighed, "Fine then. He turned his bike and revved the engine, casting one last glance toward the farmer, who remained steadfast, watching as the bikers turned away, their raucous laughter fading into the distance. As their engines echoed into the night, the farmer felt a torrent of emotion wash over him. He had held his ground not through violence, but with words that resonated with truth. The land that had cradled his family for generations felt stronger beneath his feet, and he understood the gravity of what he had defended, not just the crops and fences, but the rich tapestry of life woven through the earth. The evening sky deepened into a deep blue, the stars emerging like scattered diamonds across the vast canvas above. The farmer took a deep breath, releasing the tension that had gripped him. He wiped the sweat from his brow and felt the gentle breeze kiss his skin. It was quiet now, save for the rustling leaves and the distant chirping of crickets. A wave of gratitude washed over him for the generations before who never faltered, who taught him what it meant to hold one's ground. He turned back into the heart of the ranch, a sanctuary of hope and perseverance where every seed had been planted with purpose. That night, as he lay in bed, the sounds of the outside world faded away. He knew that the bikers may return, or others like them might come looking for trouble, but he welcomed that challenge, prepared to stand tall. In a world that seemed bent on chaos, he had experienced the profound truth of resilience. He had seen how powerful it could be to protect something with every fiber of your being, and he'd done just that. With each breath, he reminded himself, the heart finds its home, and true freedom is rooted in what we choose to stand for. The morning sun would rise again, welcoming a brand new day filled with hope, a promise that no matter the battle, some things are worth fighting for. The hum of engines broke the stillness of the evening, a restless growl that drew closer, vibrant and ominous. Dust danced in the fading light, swirling like the spirits of an ancient land, and at its heart lay a weathered ranch, an island of quiet in a tempest of noise. Suddenly, a powerful roar shattered that peace. A gang of motorcycle riders burst onto the scene, their bikes glistening, chrome reflecting the orange glow of the setting sun. Leather jackets adorned with patches told stories of rebellion, freedom, and recklessness. With each rev of their engines, the air thickened with tension and uncertainty. And at the edge of that ranch stood the farmer, a solitary figure, framed by a scrawny fence that bordered his land. He was a man shaped by the earth, with hands roughened by years of toil and a face that bore the marks of time. He had watched the world change around him, but this was different. This invasion of his sanctuary brought forth a storm within him. The leader of the bikers, a muscular man with a wild mane of hair, stared the farmer down. "What's this?" His voice dripped with mockery, the challenge echoing off the weathered barn. The farmer clenched his jaw, feeling the weight of the land beneath his feet. "This land has withstood worse than you," he replied, his tone unwavering despite the sounds of impending chaos. Laughter erupted from the gang, harsh and sharp, filling the air with a sneering confidence. The leader taunted, revving his engine, a subtle declaration of power. "It's just land. You can't pretend to own it." But the farmer wasn't just defending land in that moment. He was defending history, family, and a life built on hard work. "You don't understand," he said, stepping forward, heart pounding. "This isn't just dirt to me, it's my blood, my family's legacy." The bikers exchanged glances, caught off guard. There was a depth to his words they hadn't expected. They had come seeking thrills, a rush of adrenaline, perhaps a show of dominance, but standing before them was a man rooted in the strongest of convictions. The leader shifted his weight, smirking as if he desperately wanted to maintain control over the moment. "A heartwarming tale, but what are you going to do about it?" The farmer squared his shoulders, every muscle in his body tensing with resolve. "You can try," he said, his voice steady despite the rising tension. "But know this, I won't back down." Something shifted in the atmosphere, an electric charge, a moment hanging heavy in the air. The bikers were a feral pack, drawn together by a need for acceptance and reckless freedom. But the farmer stood alone, his grounding deepening as he felt the weight of all he had ever fought for. With a roar, the leader gunned his bike, the sound reverberating, echoing through the valley like distant thunder. The farmer took a breath, letting the agitated air fill his lungs. "You don't even know what you're asking for," he said, his voice trembling with unwavering strength. "Fighting doesn't always mean using your fists." Suddenly, the field behind the farmer seemed to awaken. Each stalk of wheat swayed like a spectator, whispering encouragement, their golden hues illuminated by the last rays of sun. The land was alive, breathing, urging its guardian to hold firm. The leader hesitated, caught off guard by the weight of the farmer's words. Sneered, but even his voice wavered, tinged now with doubt. "You can't cling to old ways forever. Life is about moving forward, man." The farmer stepped closer, the distance narrowing, their eyes locked in an unyielding gaze. "Freedom means different things to different people. It's not just noise and chaos, it's also knowing where you belong." For a moment, the gang fell silent, the weight of the farmer's challenge sinking in. They were searching for belonging, each of them felt it, even if they wouldn't admit it. The thrill of the ride was a mask, a temporary escape from their own demons, but that sense of community they craved came at a cost. As the sun slipped below the horizon, painting the sky with deep blues and purples, a soft wind brushed across the field. The bikers shifted restlessly, uncertainty brewing in their ranks. The leader clenched his fists. No one is, the farmer replied, calmer now, his voice like a soothing balm. But freedom doesn't mean trampling over someone's life. The gang looked from the farmer to one another, a flicker of realization dawning in their eyes. It was not just a fight over land or territory. It represented a struggle for identity, a connection that they had been searching for in the wrong places. The leader narrowed his eyes, torn between the urge to remain defiant and the urge to understand. Why do you care so much? It's just land. But with conviction boiling within him, the farmer replied, because it's not just about me. It's about everyone who came before me, who sacrificed for this moment. They planted their dreams in this soil. Silence enveloped them like a shroud, questions echoing among the bikers. They had come in search of a thrill, but stumbled into a life lesson they hadn't anticipated. They were standing on ground that held something precious, something they couldn't just take away. Finally, the leader sighed, frustration curling in his chest. So what now? You want to keep this fight going with just your words? It's not about fighting at all, the farmer said, voice steady. It's about standing firm and hoping to be understood. Every challenge can either break us or build bridges. A murmur of agreement rippled through the gang, a shared sense of unease mixed with understanding, the intricate layers of their own struggles surfacing. They had built bonds of brotherhood through wild adventures, but those bonds often felt tenuous. The leader finally asked, his bravado dimming. I do, the farmer replied, eyes unwavering. This land is my home, my anchor. As night began to wrap the ranch in a cloak of darkness, the unity born out of conflict began to blossom. The bikers looked inward, realizing that their bravado and reckless rides weren't fulfilling the deep yearning within them. Finally, the leader gripped his handlebars tightly, as if finding strength in the structure of his motorcycle. To start, the farmer said, offering them a tentative smile, how about you help me with the harvest? The laughter that rippled across the group felt lighter, almost cathartic. The initial tension dissipated, replaced by an unexpected camaraderie. They had come seeking a fight, but found something more, a chance to connect, to belong. With hesitant nods, the bikers parked their machines, stepping onto the soil that had once seemed foreign and now felt like a new beginning. They joined the farmer, hands reaching for the golden harvest set before them under the silvery glow of the moon. As they worked side by side, a feeling of unity began to wash over them, a bond forged not in chaos, but in mutual respect and understanding. They were no longer seen as outsiders invading a sanctuary. They had become allies, working toward a shared goal. The farmer wielded a sickle, showing them the technique required to cut the stalks with care. They shared stories, laughter echoing across the fields, and with each passing moment, the gap between them began to close. The motorcycles stood silently in the background, their engines now quiet, as if observing this newfound harmony. In the soft embrace of the night, a transformation took place. It wasn't merely the blending of worlds. It was an awakening, a realization that true freedom did not live on the edge of chaos, but in the connections we make and the land we nurture. When dawn broke, it unveiled a fresh chapter. The gang, once defined by their rebellious spirit, had discovered a purpose beyond the thrill of the ride. The farmer had stood his ground, not through force, but with the unwavering strength of his beliefs. As they gathered to watch the sunrise, the mixture of laughter and conversations fell lightly on the still morning air. They were no longer two separate worlds colliding. They had become part of a greater story, one woven with the threads of resilience, community, and legacy. And amidst that sprawling landscape, where each blade of grass carried the weight of experience, stood a farmer and a gang, united in their understanding that the true essence of freedom lies in holding one another up, in nurturing the connections we forge through the seasons of our lives. The sun hung low in the sky, casting long shadows over the quiet ranch, a sea of golden wheat swaying gently in the breeze. Just as the day began to yield to dusk, the stillness was shattered by a low rumble. First, it was barely noticeable, a mere vibration in the earth. But it grew louder, swelling into a cacophony of revving engines, a storm approaching from the horizon. A group of motorbikers burst onto the scene, their machines roaring as if they had come alive, charging forward like a herd of untamed beasts. The leader, a tall figure in a leather jacket, grinned, his sharp features illuminated by the fading sunlight. The other bikers fanned out behind him, each one a blur of color against the earthy backdrop. They were wild, reckless, and very much alive, eager for whatever chaos lay ahead. At the edge of the property, a solitary farmer stood, his silhouette framed against the vibrant sunset. His hands, calloused and weathered, were wrapped around the wooden fence, knuckles white with tension. He had seen this kind of thing before, intruders with bravado crashing into his tranquil existence. As the bikers drew closer, the farmer clenched his jaw, surveying the scene. He could feel the earth beneath him, warm and alive, throbbing with the weight of history. This land was his family's legacy, and he had spent his life nurturing it, pouring his heart into every inch. The biker leader hollered, laughter lacing his voice. What are you doing out here all alone? The gang erupted in raucous laughter, engines revving as if to punctuate their taunts. The farmer straightened, fighting the flutter of fear that gripped his heart. This isn't a party, he replied, his voice steady. This is my home. The biker leader leaned back, amusement dancing in his eyes. Your home, it looks like it could use a little excitement. He gunned his bike, sending a plume of dust swirling toward the farmer. This was the point of no return. The farmer felt a surge of adrenaline. "You can't take what's mine," he said, taking a step forward. The laughter faded as the bikers exchanged glances. There was something in the farmer's eyes, an unwavering resolve that cut through their bravado. The leader swallowed hard, trying to maintain the upper hand, but there was something starkly different about this man. "Listen, we're just here for some fun," the leader said, his voice tinged with a hint of uncertainty. "You really want to stand up to us," but the farmer didn't falter. "You could try," he said, steel in his voice, "but I will protect what I love." Anger flickered in the biker's eyes as he revved his engine again. "What makes you think you can challenge us?" He let out a laugh that was more bark than amusement, a desperate attempt to hold onto his facade. The wind picked up, rustling the wheat, a reminder of the life thriving around them, roots intertwined deep in the earth. Each figure stood their ground, the farmer steadfast and the bikers restless. A battle was brewing, not of fists and motorcycles, but of wills, conviction clashing like thunder against the chorus of revving engines. The farmer stepped forward again, the golden wheat whispering behind him. "You think bravado will win you respect? True respect is earned by standing your ground, understanding the weight of your choices." The words hung in the air, unexpected and heavy. The bikers looked among themselves, doubt creeping into their bravado. They had come looking for chaos, a rush of adrenaline, and here stood a man defined not by noise, but by quiet strength. The leader's grin faltered. He shot back, but the spark of sarcasm did little to mask his growing unease. "Not special," the farmer replied, his voice calm but passionate. "Just a man fighting for what matters. This land is my heart. The roots of my family run deep here." As the sun dipped lower, casting hues of orange and red across the landscape, a moment of vulnerability hung between them. The bikers, wild and untamed, began to see the cracks in their own bravado, the emptiness beneath. They were united in their need for belonging, but at what cost? "You're wasting your time," the leader finally muttered, shifting his weight on his bike. The farmer took a breath, sensing a flicker of doubt. "What do you want, then? To cause chaos for the sake of it?" Silence fell over the group. They were not a gang of marauders, but young souls searching for purpose, connected by something deeper than the roar of their engines. "Let's be real," one of the other bikers spoke up, his voice barely above a whisper. "This isn't who we are." He shot a glance at the leader, uncertainty writ large on his face. The tension in the air shifted, and slowly they began to turn their bikes off, the growl of engines giving way to an eerie silence. The leader clenched his fists, emotions churning. His voice was heavy, grappling with the inability to shift the narrative. "Nothing less than human," the farmer replied, his voice steady. "It takes real courage to walk away from chaos and embrace reason." The words resonated like a tuning fork, striking a chord in the group. They were used to the thrill of the chase, the exhilaration of the ride, but the emptiness of their actions left them feeling hollow. They stood at a crossroads, and the path forward was murky. "The world doesn't have to be just noise and speed," the farmer continued, taking a step closer. "True freedom is more than just running wild." The wheat behind him swayed, each blade dancing to the rhythm of an unseen breeze, as if echoing their unspoken thoughts. Perhaps it was time to break free from the cycle of chaos and embrace a new way, a way that didn't involve tearing down someone's sanctuary. Finally, the biker leader exhaled sharply, the weight of the confrontation heavy on his shoulders. "So what?" His bravado evaporated, leaving behind a sense of vulnerability. Before the farmer could reply, another biker stepped forward. "Yeah, why not? This guy might be right." The leader snapped his head toward him, aghast. "Are you serious?" Another biker interjected. An unexpected hush fell over the group, a moment of realization dawning. This was not a battle as they had expected. It was a chance for something new, for connection. The farmer smiled gently, sensing the shift. "This land could use some help. The harvest is ripe, and I could use strong hands." Time seemed to pause as the bikers exchanged glances, uncertainty mixing with hope. Breaking free from their chaos could lead to a new adventure, one filled with meaning and satisfaction. The leader's eyes softened, vulnerability surfacing in the depth of his gaze. "Only if you want to," the farmer said, his tone encouraging. "But you'll find that hard work pays off in ways you can't imagine." One by one, the bikers turned off their engines and climbed off their machines, stepping onto the soft soil, feeling it give way beneath their weight. As they joined forces with the farmer, working side by side to harvest the wheat, something remarkable happened. With every swing of the sickle, laughter erupted. They shared stories, forged new bonds, and the unity that blossomed among them broke down barriers they hadn't even realized existed. The land breathed life back into them, teaching the value of connection, learning through the earth and each other. Evening wore on, the sun becoming a distant memory behind the horizon, replaced by a blanket of stars that shimmered above them. They stood, exhausted but fulfilled, as they shared the fruits of their labor together, a simple meal as laughter and camaraderie wrapped around them like a warm embrace. In that moment, they understood. Freedom was never about how fast you could ride or how loudly you could shout. It was about finding your place, making connections, and nurturing the bonds that tie you to one another. It was about recognizing the value of standing your ground without raising a fist. And so, at that humble ranch, a battered farmer and a group of bikers forged a friendship that neither had expected. Together, they transformed chaos into community, discovering that the loudest sounds are not always those of engines revving, but the gentle laughter shared under a canopy of stars. As the night unfolded, tales were told and promises were made. They had set out as adversaries, but had found in each other a shared purpose and understanding that built bridges across the very divides they had once faced. The farmer looked around, pride swelling in his chest. These bikers were no longer just symbols of chaos. They had become allies, united in a shared journey towards something profound. And from that day forward, the ranch stood not merely as a piece of land, but as a testament to the power of standing your ground, understanding what truly matters, and cultivating the connections that can change our very lives. The sun was setting behind the rolling hills, casting long shadows over the vast expanse of golden wheat swaying gently in the evening breeze. As tranquility settled over the ranch, a low rumble filled the air, growing louder by the second. Through the stillness, the sound of roaring engines pierced the calm storm approaching, heralded by a cloud of dust rising in the distance. A group of motorbikers burst onto the scene, a wave of leather and chrome crashing through the quiet landscape. They were a formidable sight, tattoos marking their skin like battle scars, glints of metal flashing under the dying sunlight. Each biker emanated a raw energy, their laughter mingling with the growling of their machines. But at the edge of the ranch stood a lone farmer, an island of calm amidst the chaos. His rough, calloused hands gripped the fence post as he watched the bikers close in, adrenaline coursing through his veins. This land was his lifeblood, a heritage carved out of sweat and sacrifice, and he would not let anyone threaten it. The leader of the bikers, the biggest of the bunch with wild hair and an air of bravado, grinned as he spotted the farmer. "Hey there, old man. What's a guy like you doing out in the middle of nowhere?" The farmer held his ground, the weight of generations behind him. "This isn't a place for trouble," he replied, voice steady but low. The laughter of the gang rippled through the air, punctuating the tension that threatened to explode. "Not welcome? Come on." The leader revved his engine, the roar echoing like thunder, rattling the very earth beneath them. The farmer responded, narrowing his eyes. "This is my home." There was a fire in his words, a fierce resolve that caught even the bikers off guard. For every sneering grin turned into a cloud of uncertainty, a flicker of doubt webbing through their bravado. The air felt charged, electric, with the unyielding spirit of a man prepared to defend what was his. "Look, old man," the leader said, feigning confidence. "We just want to have a good time. What's it gonna take to change your mind?" The farmer stepped closer, the cool wind adding weight to his words. "May outnumber me, but I stand for something more than just myself." The gang fell silent, the laughter dying in their throats. They were used to intimidating those who dared stand in their way, accustomed to causing chaos wherever they went. But they had never faced anyone like this. The farmer radiated a quiet strength that was hard to ignore, a deep-seated resolve that dug its roots into the very ground where he stood. The leader shifted on his bike, a flicker of uncertainty crossing his features. He scoffed, though the bravado in his voice was less certain. "I don't want to stop you," the farmer replied, unyielding. "I want you to understand that this place means something." Intrigued murmurs rippled through the bikers. They had stormed onto the ranch looking for a thrill, a rush of excitement, but here they stood, facing a man who radiated calm in the face of chaos. The clash of ideals unraveled before them, an intoxicating blend of noise against silence, rebellion against tradition. The tension thickened, a palpable force as the fading sun cast an orange hue over the tension-filled field. With every breath, the farmer felt the pull of his land, felt the whispers of the crops and the promise of the earth. "Let's make this simple," the leader finally said, voice wavering. "You let us throw a party tonight and we'll leave you alone." The farmer retorted, the steel in his voice unyielding. "What's fair about trampling over someone's life for your own amusement?" Another biker piped up, emboldened by the leader's challenge. "Maybe that's your perspective," the farmer said, a flash of frustration breaking through his calm demeanor. The bikers exchanged glances, confusion beginning to settle amidst their bravado. They were seekers of freedom, defined by their roaring engines, but here was a man who embodied a different kind of independence, one tied to heritage and deep-rooted values. The leader stuttered, searching for words to salvage his defiance. The farmer took a step forward, the challenge now laid bare. "No, I want you to think. Think about what you're doing here and why it matters. When someone puts their heart into something, it becomes part of them." The moment was suspended in time as the group fell silent, the weight of the farmer's words settling around them. The laughter and wildness that had fueled their encounters began to fade under the strength of a man who was not afraid to stand alone. "Look," one of the bikers finally said, lowering his voice, "we're just trying to have a bit of fun. Fun shouldn't come at the expense of others," the farmer replied, softness creeping into his voice. "There's a difference between freedom and chaos. True freedom is knowing who you are and what you stand for." As the weight of those words sank in, the bikers exchanged uncertain glances. They had been riding for thrills, chasing transient excitement, but now they found themselves confronted by something deeper and understanding that evaded them in their escapades. I didn't come out here looking to cause trouble, one of the other bikers offered hesitantly, adjusting his grip on the handlebars. The farmer encouraged, a hint of hope lighting his eyes. The leader ran his hand through his hair, frustration evident. So what do you suggest? We just pack up and go home? No, the farmer replied. Help me tend to this land. There's work to be done and hands are always welcome. A collective pause lingered in the air, a moment hung in balance. The bikers had come seeking excitement, but now stood facing the possibilities of something far richer than the thrill of the chase. They began to realize that adventure did not have to come at the expense of another person, not when they could become a part of something larger. The leader asked, his facade of bravado cracking further. The choice is yours, the farmer replied, genuine warmth creeping into his voice. A wave of contemplation spread through the group as they considered the farmer's words. They had come to disrupt, to assert, but now saw themselves reflected back in a man who stood ready to open his heart even to those who threatened his world. Finally, the leader sighed, looking at the faces of his gang, a mix of curiosity and surprise. Fine, we'll help. The farmer nodded, a spark igniting in his heart. Of course. And so, as the sun dipped beneath the horizon, casting the ranch in soft twilight, a bond was formed between them, a gang of bikers and a farmer, united by purpose instead of conflict. The roaring machines quieted, replaced by laughter, the sound of shovels hitting the earth, and the rustling of wheat in the wind. They worked side by side, clearing the fields, planting seeds, and preparing for the harvest. Stories were shared, laughter rang out like music, filling the air with an energy that transcended the barriers that had once stood between them. With each passing hour, walls began to crumble, and the bikers discovered a newfound appreciation for the land. As they tilled the soil, something shifted within them. For the first time, they were part of a community, part of something genuine, where their actions mattered beyond just fleeting moments of thrill. Under the starlit sky, they shared a simple meal, food born from the very earth they had worked to cultivate together. The farmer spoke of seasons, of the bond between soil and soul, and in turn, the bikers opened up about their lives, about seeking connection and belonging outside the noise of their engines. In those shared moments, something incredible happened. They transformed from reckless individuals into brothers and sisters, bonded by newfound respect and understanding. They began to see life through a different lens, realizing that true freedom doesn't just lie in chasing adrenaline, but in building deep roots, cultivating relationships, and standing for something meaningful. And so, the once distant bikers became part of the ranch's story, interwoven with the very essence of the land. The farmer stood tall, his heart swelling with pride as he watched their laughter fill the fields, a sound far richer than he ever expected to hear. As dawn broke over the horizon, painting the world in hues of pink and gold, the ranch didn't just stand as a home for the farmer anymore. It became a symbol of unity, of breaking down walls. The bikers had charged the ranch, but they had found something deeper than chaos. They discovered camaraderie and a sense of belonging. Together, they had transformed what could have been conflict into an unforgettable moment, a chance to create connection out of chaos. With every hand that worked the land, the farmer and the bikers built a legacy that would transcend the trials of the day. In the end, they learned that true strength comes not from taking but from giving, and that freedom is ultimately defined by the bonds of connection, love, and understanding that we cultivate in our lives. And so the ranch stood tall, a testament to resilience, a beacon of hope for all who ventured there, a place where noise faded into silence and silent strength blossomed into beautiful harmony. The dust stirred in the air as a distant rumble grew louder. It started as a low growl but quickly turned into a thunderous roar. A plume of dust kicked up behind a horde of motorbikes charging toward the ranch like a storm cloud intent on wreaking havoc. A group of bikers, clad in leather and adorned with patches, filled the horizon, engines shouting their defiance against the peaceful evening sky. At the edge of the acreage, a lone farmer stood gripping a weathered fence post, his heart pounding like a drum in his chest. The sun was setting, casting an amber glow over his land. Every inch of this ranch was part of him, a testament to years of hard work, sweat, and stories woven into the very soil. But now it felt like a storm was coming, and the threat bore wheels and leather. "Hey there, old man," the leader of the bikers, a tall figure with unruly hair and a grin that promised trouble, shouted as he revved his engine. Laughter erupted from the gang, a harsh chorus of reckless amusement. The farmer took a deep breath, feeling the warmth of the earth beneath his boots grounding him. "This isn't a place for a party," he replied, his voice steady despite the storm brewing before him. "Not a party?" The leader laughed, spitting some dust from his mouth. "This land looks like it could use some excitement." "This land is my life," the farmer countered, his voice unwavering. "It's not a playground for you to trample on." At that, the laughter subsided, replaced by a tense silence as the bikers exchanged glances. They were used to swagger and bravado, accustomed to bending others to their will. But this farmer stood firm, unblinking, a mountain against their storm. "Look, old man," the leader sneered, not quite meeting the farmer's gaze. "You think you can stand against us? We outnumber you." A rush of adrenaline surged through the farmer. "You may outnumber me," he replied, his voice echoing against the backdrop of the setting sun, "but this land does not belong to you." His words hung in the air, thick and charged. The bikers, caught off guard by the farmer's resolve, began to question their own intentions. They had surged in, ready for a fight, yet winded by the strength of one man's conviction. "Yeah, what are you gonna do?" the leader retorted, though the bravado felt thin, scraping against the formidable force standing before him. The farmer's eyes held a fierce glint. "But I won't go down without a fight." The bikers paused. They were a band of rebels, yearning for freedom and adventure, but in their hearts many felt the emptiness that came from a life lived recklessly. They had come looking for thrill, not to confront a man who knew exactly who he was and what he stood for. "Look, we don't want any trouble," one of the bikers finally spoke, stepping slightly away from the gang. "Fun shouldn't come at someone else's expense," the farmer said softly, his voice steady as he locked eyes with the hesitant biker. The leader shifted, frustration creeping into his posture. "You think we're here to hurt you?" The farmer took a step forward, fighting against the tension crackling in the air like frayed electricity. "There's a difference between living free and causing destruction. You may call it living, I call it running away." For a moment, the bikers were silent, the doubt in their eyes betraying their bravado. Each rev of the engines had covered a truth they hadn't dared to face. The leader's grin faltered, replaced by a look of uncertainty as he considered the farmer's words. "Everyone has their reasons for being on the road," the farmer continued. "But what good does it do if it leads to nothing but chaos?" The other bikers began to nod, the reality settling in. This wasn't just about a man defending his land, it was about understanding the choices they had made and the impact of those choices. As they stood there, something shifted in the atmosphere. The roar of engines faded into silence, replaced by thoughtful contemplation. "Look," the leader finally said, his bravado diminished. "We came here thinking we could have some fun, but maybe you're right." The words felt foreign on his tongue, but also liberating, a slow dawning of awareness. It was as if a light had flickered on in the depths of his spirit, illuminating a path towards something greater. The farmer suggested, his voice warm and inviting, "Let's work together. There's plenty to do around here, and trust me, there's nothing more fulfilling than putting your hands on the earth and creating something meaningful." The bikers exchanged glances, uncertainty mixed with curiosity flashing through their eyes. They had come in search of excitement, but were suddenly faced with the possibility of something deeper: connection, purpose, and respect. One of them hesitated, glancing around at the expanse of the ranch. "There's always work to be done," the farmer affirmed, feeling a surge of hope. It was a radical shift, a moment where the boundaries began to blur. The farmer was offering a chance at redemption, a way to rewrite the narrative that had led them to confrontational chaos. The leader asked, a hint of newfound eagerness in his voice. "Let's clear the fields and prepare them for planting," the farmer said, gesturing to the vast stretches of land. And with that simple invitation, the bikers turned off their engines, the roar replaced by the rhythm of purpose. They parked their bikes, stepping onto the soil that had always felt foreign and now vibrated with possibility. As the sun dipped lower, casting a warm gold over the field, the bikers picked up tools and followed the farmer's lead. With each stroke of the hoe, they dug into the earth, feeling its texture, its coolness embracing their tired hands. The farmer said, his voice light as they started to sweat. Laughter began to ripple through the group, breaking down the walls that had stood so tall just moments before. The bikers shared stories about their wild rides, about the freedom they felt while chasing adrenaline. But with each story shared, their tough exteriors began to soften, revealing the vulnerable hearts beneath. "Life on the road is exhilarating," one biker admitted as he worked alongside the farmer. "But sometimes I feel like I'm running in circles." The farmer nodded knowingly. "I understand that feeling, but here you're building something that matters, something you can return to." They dug deeper, working late into the night, embracing the quiet that settled around them. Stars twinkled overhead, making their labor feel almost otherworldly. The moon hung like a guardian, illuminating the space as laughter and camaraderie filled the air. The bikers marveled at how fulfilling it felt to put in the hard work, to see immediate results from their efforts. They found solace in the rhythm of their movements, slowly bonding over shared toil, understanding that strength was not only found in speed. As the hours passed, they shared meals, feasting on simple, hearty fare, discussing life, dreams, and the challenges of existence. Under the canvas of stars, the bikers transformed from mere strangers into allies of the land, united by a common purpose. One biker asked, wiping his brow. "It's about more than just crops for me," the farmer replied, eyes sparkling with sincerity. "It's a legacy. This land is where my family grew, where our stories were written." In that moment, the bikers understood the depth of his commitment. They had come charging in ready to disrupt and tear down, only to find a man devoted to nurturing life. Their perceptions began to change, and they found themselves questioning the very identities they had constructed for themselves. As dawn broke, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink, a profound silence enveloped the ranch. It was a new day, marked not by noise, but by a renewed sense of purpose shared among those who had once been adversaries. The farmer looked out over the land, proud of the hard work they had accomplished together. It was no longer just his ranch. It was a sanctuary of renewal, a testament to the power of unity in the face of turmoil. "You know," the leader said, glancing around at the vibrant fields, "I never thought I'd be here doing this, but it feels good." "Trust me," the farmer smiled, "part of that good comes from being a part of something larger than yourself." Standing together, side by side, they witnessed the fruits of their labor take shape. It wasn't just about planting seeds. It was about planting hope, each seed buried deep in the earth, promising a future of connection, community, and resilience. As the sun fully rose, casting a radiant glow across the fields, the group gathered at the edge of the ranch, looking out at what they had created. Sunflowers nodded in the breeze, their vibrant heads bowing like welcoming beacons, ready to embrace the new life that had begun to bloom. The bikers had charged the ranch, but they had found something far greater than the thrill of the ride. They found a home in the process of connecting, in rolling up their sleeves alongside a man who understood the importance of standing your ground. In working together, they discovered a sense of belonging that far outweighed the fleeting excitement of chaos. With every challenge they faced together from that day on, they became strong pillars in each other's lives, bikers and farmer alike, forever united by the soil they had cultivated together and by the bonds of understanding and respect that would last a lifetime. The ranch stood tall and proud, a symbol of resilience and unity, where the echoes of laughter would become a melody, intertwining with the whispers of the wind. And as new crops began to rise, so too did a legacy that would flourish, nurtured by hands willing to reach out and hold on to something meaningful together. The sun dipped low over the horizon, casting long shadows across the sprawling fields of golden wheat. The ranch was peaceful, almost idyllic, the kind of place where dreams have roots. But peace can be fragile, like the soft whispers of wind through the crops. Out of nowhere, a distant rumble began to build, an ominous sound that shattered the stillness. As the noise grew louder, the farmer squinted into the distance and his heart sank. A group of motorbikes, 20, maybe 30, barreled down the dirt road, a dark cloud of leather and chrome racing toward his sanctuary. The lead biker, a hulking figure with wild hair and a raucous laugh, pointed at the ranch like it was some trophy to be claimed. He bellowed, revving his engine, sending dust swirling behind him. The farmer could feel his pulse quicken, instinctively gripping the weathered fence post in front of him. The damage that could be done in an afternoon broke through his mind like shards of glass. This land was not just dirt, it was his life, his blood, and his family's legacy. No way would he let it be turned into a playground for chaos. As the bikers roared closer, laughter erupted among them, wild and intoxicating. They were the kind of people who lived for thrills, whose lives spun on adrenaline and reckless abandon. But to the farmer, they were a storm threatening to uproot everything he had worked for. With his boots firmly planted on the ground, the farmer stepped forward, hands on his hips, drawing courage from the very soil beneath him. "You boys better turn around," he shouted, his voice carrying across the fields. The laughter died down, replaced by a startled silence. The bikers slowed their bikes, uncertain, amused by the sight of the lone farmer standing his ground. The leader looked down at the man who dared challenge them and chuckled, shaking his head. "What's a dude like you gonna do?" "I'm not trying to scare you," the farmer replied, steady and unwavering. "I'm asking you to leave." His heart raced, not out of fear, but from a fierce protectiveness that swelled within him. The leader revved his engine again, a growl that felt like a challenge. "Looks like it could use a little fun." With every intention of keeping the peace, the farmer answered calmly, "You're welcome to visit, but not to destroy." The bikers exchanged glances, the initial bravado hanging in the air like a heavy fog. One biker called out. The farmer kept his stance, muscles taut, but never resorted to anger. "I'm not looking for a fight, but I will protect what's mine." The leader scoffed, shaking his head, trying to regain control of the situation. "What's it gonna take for you to back down, old man?" In that moment, something shifted within the bikers. The laughter that had fueled their bravado began to falter under the weight of their own egos. They feasted on chaos without considering the consequences, and surrounded by the expansive beauty of the ranch, they began to face the truth of their actions. "Look, guys," one biker ventured, stepping out from the gang. "We don't want to hurt anyone. Fun shouldn't come at someone else's expense," the farmer replied, sincerity etched into every word. He could see the confusion in their eyes, the uncertainty bubbling just beneath the surface. They were seeking a thrill, yes, but not at the cost of others. The leader snapped, irritation cutting through the hesitant atmosphere. His words felt like a desperate flail against the truth being laid bare before him. "I'm just a man who loves his land," the farmer said, "and I won't let anyone take it away from me." The bikers fell quiet as the weight of his words sank in. They had always reveled in the thrill of the ride, seeking acceptance in chaos, but now confronted the reality that they might be escaping something deeper, perhaps loneliness or the fear of being lost. "Maybe we were too quick to act," one of the bikers finally said, uncertainty creeping in. "We didn't come out here to hurt you." "Then let's turn this around," the farmer suggested, seeking the flickers of understanding in their eyes. "You want freedom? Help me tend to this land." The leader shifted on his bike, caught off guard by the unexpected proposal. He exchanged a glance with another biker, confusion mixing with curiosity. Yeah, you helped me, and in return you can learn what it really means to connect with something. The silence that followed felt heavy, pregnant with contemplation. The energy had shifted dramatically from hostility to an unexpected opportunity for growth. The leader considered the farmer's offer, each second stretching into an eternity. I don't get it, he finally said, his voice softer, almost vulnerable. Because everyone has value, the farmer returned. And even if you've wandered a while in chaos, you can still learn to build to nurture something beautiful. For the bikers, the idea of working the land seemed as foreign as flying. How could they, a bunch of wild spirits, contribute to something so rooted and grounded? But the truth began to sink in. They longed for connection, for purpose, a calling they hadn't yet recognized. The leader finally said, frustration giving way to curiosity. We'll help you. The farmer smiled, relief flooding his chest. It will be. As the bikers turned off their engines, the tension that had filled the air began to dissipate. They stepped onto the soil that just moments ago had felt like an alien world. Now it thrummed with possibility, vibrant and alive. The farmer handed them tools, guiding them through the rhythm of work. This is how you connect with the earth and with each other. Feel this, he said, planting his hands in the soil, the coolness kissing his skin. With every swing of their tools, something shifted within them, a realization dawning that hard work could forge connections, both with the land and with each other. As they labored, their stories began to flow, laughter breaking the silence of the field, turning it into a sanctuary of mutual respect and understanding. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in colors of orange and violet, the bikers found themselves immersed in something beyond mere adventure. They were constructing a bond of newfound kinship that went deeper than leather and chrome. I never thought I'd enjoy this, one of the bikers admitted, wiping sweat from his brow. The farmer smiled, watching their transformation unfold. This is where you find your strength, not in terror, but in building. When the crops grow strong, you'll connect with the roots beneath. Night came, bringing a blanket of stars overhead. They gathered for a simple meal, sharing stories about life on the road, speaking of years of chasing thrills and the emptiness that sometimes followed. The bikers began to reveal parts of themselves they had hidden within the walls of bravado. You know, we ride hard to escape, another biker confessed, his voice carrying the weight of honesty. The farmer nodded, understanding shimmering in his gaze. Finding yourself begins with connection. As the night deepened, each story they told interlaced with others, creating a tapestry of experience and understanding. The farmer had breathed life into the bikers, who had once confronted him like a force of nature. Now they stood united, shoulder to shoulder, living proof that even the wildest of souls could find their way back to meaning. As dawn broke, the world awoke to a new day. The farmer land, just moments before threat, stood transformed by the hard work of hands once seeking chaos. Mornings like this had a quality of magic, and the connection forged through labor filled the ranch with a renewed sense of purpose. The biker leader looked around, surprise coloring his features. I didn't think we could change like this. Together, the farmer replied, his heart swelling with pride, part of something greater than ourselves. The bikers stood at the edge of the field, watching the horizon explode into brilliant colors. In the distance, the world felt limitless, and somewhere in that journey, they had discovered a piece of themselves they hadn't even known was missing. Together, they planted more than just seeds. They planted hope, digging deep into the earth and into their lives. And as the sun continued to rise higher in the sky, it illuminated the beauty of the path they had forged, a path of resilience, growth, and unbreakable bonds. In the end, they had charged the ranch, but in the process, they had found not just a man defending his home, but an opportunity to redefine their lives. Their adventure had transformed into something profound, a raw and beautiful connection with the land and each other. And in that golden moment, riding into the future, they understood that true freedom isn't found in escapism, but in purpose, in belonging, and in the hearts they touched along the way. It was a ride like no other, and together they were just getting started. The stillness was shattered by a distant, rumbling chaos that grew louder and more menacing. Dark shapes emerged on the horizon, twisting toward the ranch like a storm cloud rolling in. A gang of motorbikers roaring toward the fields laughed and shouted, their engines echoing against the wide-open sky. The sun hung low, casting a warm glow on the golden wheat, but something dark seethed beneath the surface. At the edge of the ranch, a lone farmer stood, fists clenched at his sides. His weathered skin glistened with sweat, not from the sun, but from an impending sense of dread. He watched the approaching gang, their laughter a harsh contrast against the tranquil hum of the land he had tended for years. Earth beneath him thrummed with life, every blade of grass a symbol of his hard work, family legacy, and everything he had built. Hey, cried the leader of the bikers, a stocky guy with unkempt hair, reckless energy practically radiating off him. The farmer straightened his back, summoning every ounce of courage he had. He shouted, his voice echoing across the fields. The gang stopped short, their bikes roaring to a halt, gravel flying. They turned to him, surprised by the size of the man's conviction. Laughter faded, replaced by uneasy murmurs. The leader stepped forward, smirking, but there was an edge to his bravado. What are you gonna do about it, huh? The farmer's calm voice held firm. Is that what you call it? You think this is some playground for you to trample over? This land is alive. The air grew heavy with tension, the bikers exchanging glances, impressed yet defiant. They were used to being feared, but this man didn't flinch. Instead, he stood rooted like a sentinel, unwavering in the face of chaos. Come on, old man, the leader pressed. We just want to let loose. He revved the motorbike, a growl that echoed like a challenge. The farmer's eyes narrowed. He could feel the weight of his ancestors behind him. Even as the light dimmed, their strength pulsed through his veins. You may think you're strong, but you're wrong. A shocked silence enveloped the scene. Bikers hesitated, their bravado wavering, realizing they weren't facing just anyone. The farmer's words cut through the noise, leaving behind the unsettling quiet of self-reflection. I don't want trouble, one biker finally said, stepping forward, known among their crew as the thinker. But we've come a long way, searching for some fun. We didn't mean to not this way, the farmer interjected, voice steady but firm. If you want to have fun, there are ways to do it without ruining someone's life. The leader shifted, frustration welling inside him. You really think we care about your land? The farmer took a deep breath, his heart hammering in his chest but his stature unwavering. This land has seen more than you can imagine. It has history, it has stories that need to be respected. The leader scoffed, but his bravado had diminished. The rest of the bikers began to exchange uncertain looks, slowly recognizing the truth in the farmer's words. They were a chaotic force, but each of them bore the scars of their past broken families, lost ties, moments of solitude they sought to escape. The air hung heavy with unspoken thoughts, the tension pleading for resolution. The farmer continued, What if you do something different? Help you? The leader choked on disbelief, attempting to maintain his authority. Plenty, the farmer replied, his tone resolute. The harvest is coming, I could use strong hands. One of the bikers questioned, uncertainty filling his voice. Because I believe everyone has potential, the farmer said, eyes shining with conviction. Even you. The bikers looked at one another, a murmur of doubt circulating in the air. They were rebels, wild at heart, but they had never been invited to build something. They had only ever known the thrill of chaos and conflict. The leader finally asked, uncertainty creeping into his tone. The farmer pressed, hopeful. We can work together. The moment stretched, filled with hesitation and reflection. The farmer added, challenging and inviting them all at once. You want a story worth telling? You can make it happen. Finally, the leader revved his engine one last time, a defiant move, but the spark of adrenaline only flickered. Fine, we'll help you. The farmer stepped back, relief flooding him as he motioned for them to put their bikes down. Great. With each biker dismounting their machines, the air shifted. The engines quieted, and soon laughter replaced the bike sounds. As they picked up tools, the atmosphere transformed from tense confrontation to a lively spirit of collaboration. Come on, this isn't going to be easy, the farmer said, smiling as they began to work side by side. Digging their hands into the soil for the first time felt foreign yet strangely liberating for the bikers. They laughed at their clumsiness, sharing stories about their wild rides and past misadventures. One joked, and laughter echoed across the fields, becoming a melody that fused with the warm wind. As the sun dipped lower, the dimming light illuminated their earnest work, each biker stepping deeper into a rhythm that began to feel right. The farmer guided them, instructing them with patience, explaining the significance of each seed they planted. Feel this, he encouraged, thrusting his hands into the rejuvenating earth. This is where life begins. The bikers glanced at one another, the weight of their pasts ebbing away with the rhythm of their labor. As they dug, they realized they were already beginning to carve out new pathways for themselves, away from chaos and destruction. Maybe we all need to find our roots, one biker mused as he planted yet another seed into the ground. Turning to the farmer, he continued, but this. Night blanketed the sky, stars twinkling like diamonds overhead. They gathered around a simple meal, gathering strength from shared stories, labor, and courage brought them all closer. Another biker said, a newfound calm washing over him. Peace and purpose come from understanding, the farmer replied, a deep warmth flowing through him. Questions floated in the air, each biker revealing pieces of their lives they had hidden behind the facades of reckless abandon. The night brought forth a connection, a fleeting moment of vulnerability among these hardened souls. But then a noise shattered the tranquil moment, an engine in the distance, roaring like a challenge. The group froze, their laughter fading into apprehension. The leader asked, scanning the horizon. The farmer's heart dropped. Not again, he mumbled, fear creeping into his voice. The roar grew louder as headlights pierced through the darkness, illuminating the fields like a spotlight on a stage. A second gang of bikers appeared, the glint of metallic jackets flashing menacingly. They were wild, untamed, promising chaos as they skidded off their bikes and spread in a tight formation. The newcomer leader swaggered forward, casting disdainful glances at the farmer and his new companions. What's this? His laugh seemed to echo menacingly, cutting through the night. The tension in the air thickened as the initial group of bikers glanced between each other, uncertainty written on their faces. The second leader scoffed, resting a heavy hand on his bike. The farmer's heart raced. It was a challenge that felt like a hammer striking against metal, older and fiercer than himself. The original gang stood shoulder to shoulder with the farmer, uncertainty now woven tightly with resolve. They had come looking for adventure and found something deeper. Standing with the farmer felt different now. This wasn't just his ranch, it was their newfound purpose. The standoff was electric, charges weaving through the air, hearts pounding in unison. Tension crackled like a live wire, lives about to clash in a way that reached far beyond the fields. The new bikers laughed, calling out taunts, lined up like soldiers ready for war. The standoff felt like the very ground was splitting beneath them, tension coiling tighter and tighter. But in that moment, the original gang knew. Standing with the farmer meant standing for something worth fighting for. As the lead biker stepped forward, a bolt of realization flashed through the air. They were ready to face whatever storm was coming together. And as the first shout for battle rang out against the expansive sky, they braced themselves for the clash that would change everything. The fight had only just begun.